The IMRO award-winning sports programme.
Off the Ball. This is News Talk.
And it is the Sunday paper review on Off the Ball on this, the 10th of August. Very happy Sunday to you. Hope you're well, whatever time of the day it is that you're picking us up. Here alongside Shane McEntee, the former Meath football captain, and alongside Shane, the former pro tennis player, Davis Cup player, Simon Carr. Lads, you're welcome.
Cheers.
Thanks a million for coming in.
Thanks for having us, Adrian.
Lots of juice to get into. We'll let people know what's happening across the back pages to begin with. We're going to start with the Sunday Times. It's Manchester United's shiny new trio here. The new Holy Trinity, wonders the Sunday Times. Everton up Grealish interest, writes Paul Joyce, Northern football correspondent there. And O'Shea hails return of Ogbene for the qualifiers. Chidozie Ogbene back from a very long injury layoff for his club during the week, so that would indeed be good news ahead of those qualifiers upcoming. The Sunday Independent is time to get real. Ireland aim to make mark at World Cup. Heavy loss to Canada in Belfast yesterday. World number 2 ranked Canada. Let's just get that in there to give a bit of context to it. And Isak out in the cold as Newcastle played tough. Player told to accept Liverpool move will not happen. Maybe a bit of gamesmanship there from Newcastle, we shall see. The Mail on Sunday, aiming high. Sheshko says United ready to win biggest trophies. And Ryan stars on mixed day for Hamer, writes Mark Gallagher here. Ryan Manning scored a sensational goal for Southampton yesterday. Anybody see that?
No. Yeah, some strike. Yeah,
wow.
Lovely. I think he made the winner then after. Yeah,
thought he handballed it. I had to replay it and slow it down and look at it. But listen, who's counting?
No, don't.
He came in off the bench with about 20 minutes to go, and it was some goal. Like,
yeah,
a bit of naivety maybe from the Wrexham goalkeeper, but at the same time,
yeah, he couldn't have placed it better though.
Galway out to halt Cork's march into history, writes Mark Gallagher as well. This is on the Camogie finals at Croke Park today. Whoa, Sheska's on fire. See the way I try to add a little bit of singing into that, says the Sun on Sunday. Ruben Amorim has urged 74 million new boy Benjamin Sheshko to rein it in and not work so hard. I mean, you know, all Manchester United fans going, could you work a bit harder? We Maeve keep going. Rebel eyes firmly on the prize. Maeve Cahalane, the Cork captain from royalty, Cork royalty. We'll get into that a little bit more as we get into the papers. Liverpool saved me. Midfielder reveals how Cop rescued him from a year of hell that pushed him to the brink. This is Ryan Gravenberg. And Flynn, Paul Flynn, that is, Ger move appears ad hoc. Having read the quotes, was that what he was saying? Might have been somewhere in that ballpark. Last one, the People on Sunday, signed, sealed, delivered, I'm yours. Benjamin Sheshko insisted that the future was bright at United, and plenty more inside there. And I can't go without like having a Meath man beside me here. The front page of the Sunday Times is Mel Gibson, who looks like he's been like running through an airport and just got snapped unexpectedly, as opposed to sitting down in Trim Castle. Braveheart actor swapped a sword for a pen to sign posted at Trimcastle Hotel, County Meath, to mark 30 years since the premiere of the movie, filmed in Ireland and Scotland. Bit of fuss going on up there?
Yeah, I think all the High Kings had to get together and welcome him back in. But no, it's pretty cool. It's a really cool kind of heritage piece for the county and for Trim especially. Like, that's kind of the first thing whenever you see the castle. That's where a lot of Braveheart was filmed. And then ironically for me, the other big setting they used that was the Curragh in Kildare. So whenever we're out running cadets around there, Braveheart Hill is kind of the reference point.
Oh, really?
To go to. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
The ground was good in Ireland. It was better in Ireland than it was. There was more horses. Michael D gave them the what do they call the FCA?
Yeah. What was now the Reserve Defence Forces, the FCA back then. Yeah, I think they did a lot of the extras. Yeah,
and the ground was good for horses apparently.
Yeah.
So. Who knew?
Yeah, and hill sprints.
Yeah.
All that sort of transfer tittle tattle, and there's plenty of it going on there. Interested, couldn't give a hoot.
Passing interest, I'd say. Yeah. I wouldn't be a die-hard transfer-wise.
I'd say the Grealish stuff was quite interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
He's how long has he been in City?
God, you're asking me. I'd say 5 years.
Yeah. Didn't really work out the way that was probably expected, was it? He's been on the sidelines for a little while.
No, and it sort of feels like he just needs to get out of there now. And like, it's been obvious that Pep didn't fancy him. Maybe the only surprising thing is that he's not going back to Aston Villa. I don't know, maybe that's... But equally, David Moyes at Everton seems like a good manager to play under.
Yeah, solid. It would probably be a solid move. I think his goal is probably World Cup next year, isn't it? For him personally.
And game time would be the massive thing, obviously, with City and their kind of array of talents there. He couldn't guarantee game time the last few years. Would you imagine the likes of Everton or Villa, he'd be he'd be first name down most weeks.
Shows the depth. I mean, City have, it's unreal. Like a player like Grealish can poke through and get on. It's unreal.
Heading into his 5th season, well, or not, as the case may be. Plenty of coverage about the new Dublin manager. Are you excited about Ger Brennan? Is that the right word?
Maybe not excited. I think it's a really interesting kind of journey from the last couple of years. To give him huge credit, I thought the Louth vacancy when it came up after Mickey Hart and Gavin Devlin left, who were so clearly adored by the Louth team, and they're on such a trajectory, and the nature of them leaving, I would have thought that's a dirty job to take over, because I just couldn't see. I've seen it so many times with teams when they're almost devoted to a manager. It doesn't matter who comes in after. Trying to build it is very difficult. And like, I mean, not only did he do that, he kind of did the unimaginable for them and got a Leinster title. So he certainly has earned his stripes. And given how quick I thought it was interesting when Desi Farrell stepped down and kind of very quickly said, I had told the county board this is the last year. Ger Brennan steps down from Louth pretty soon after. I know there was a little bit of talk during the week that Declan Darcy was possibly in the running, but all the signs from a few weeks back suggested that this was maybe part of the contingency plan for Dublin, possibly in a way they had done previously with the likes of Gavin and Farrell coming in after Gilroy. So obviously not the exact same pattern, but I thought it had all the earmarks from a few weeks back that this is where he was going. And as I say, given the job he's done in Louth, he'll certainly come in with a good CV.
There was a piece, Dermot Crowe's piece here. There's a lot of opinion about it. Joe Brawley has written about it, and we'll get into that in a bit. But yeah, Dermot Crowe's written a piece in Sunday Independent. Lengthy to-do list for new boss. Farrell's successor takes over in a period of ongoing readjustment, and he talks about the recently retired Louth player Craig Lynch, who was one of Brennan's go-to men when he arrived in, get a bit of a fix on the scene here. Lots of quotes. The one that jumped out for me: Mickey Hart and Gavin Devlin were meticulous, but possibly lacked a wee bit of personality. I mean, I'm gonna, I could leave that hanging, or I could continue with the quote. Maybe personality is the wrong word. He says Ger's personality is ideal for the Dubs, absolutely ideal. And it is interesting because I know we had Peter Fitzpatrick on. Can't remember exactly what the context was. Feels like about a year ago, but maybe it was around the Brennan appointment, and he was saying that at that time he had rung Jim Gavin and he'd rung Pat Gilroy to ask them to do the gig in his Louth capacity. Peter Fitzpatrick at that time, both of them had said, listen, I'm not sure, probably can't do it, but Ger Brennan is the guy. And it was actually in that context when, I know you said there had been a lot of fuss, a lot of chat around Declan Darcy maybe during the week, but when those two were saying this is the guy, presumably they get consulted around this whole thing as well, and it becomes a no-brainer almost in some ways. Yeah,
and I know Joe Brawley is obviously close with Pat Gilroy, references in his article a lot of the traits that Gilroy would have seen in Ger Brennan, and Jim Gavin obviously the same. He mightn't have got as many years out of him. I think his body gave up on him towards the end. But yeah, he's clearly seen as a really influential figure in that kind of cultural shift within Dublin. He's quite a unique character. Like, I would have dealt with him a little bit. I was back in UCD for a couple of years, and although unable to play football due to eligibility, Ger would have been really good in kind of making a bit of time, and I would have got to know him reasonably well. And he's just a bit different. Like, he's a different kind of sense of humour, but he's quite personable. And yeah, I'd say I can see a lot of why he'd connect with players. There's no BS about him. Like, he's very blunt in his views and opinions. Even before I would have got to know him overly well, he wouldn't be shy in telling you what he thinks of certain matters. So again, I think that's that sort of direct transparency in intercounties is hugely important, and obviously served him well in Louth, and I could see it continuing on there.
What does unique mean?
I'd say he's a little bit eccentric. Like, as I say, some of his I don't know, just some of he's kind of witty, but it's hard to describe, in a different sort of way. He's probably not your stereotypical, it's going to sound ill on me and all my peers, bland GA sort of personality,
Well, as two lads who come from stock of sons of two intercounty managers, you're uniquely placed.
But you get that, you kind of have that like real stereotype of what like GA personalities are around the place, and I wouldn't say he fits that mold without being able to put an exact label on it. Maybe
that's fair enough. Yeah. That's interesting. One thing that I've noticed about him, he often references the person's name, whoever he's talking to. Yeah. He was doing a piece of Darren McNamara for Dubs TV, and I've seen this from the last couple of years. He'll always say the name, go out of his way to make sure that he says the name, which the cynic in me is like, it's a bit of a look at. If you're saying there's a deeper level to that, you sort of take that as it is. I asked you earlier about the transfer tittle tattle. Do you both pay attention to these things, just given the households that you come from in terms of intercounty management and the reporting of it and the hothouse nature of it?
Yeah, I mean, from a general perspective, my family is a GAA mad family, so this stuff, comes in and definitely doesn't slip through the cracks. I actually haven't spoken to my dad specifically about this since it's come out. From what I read, it seems like it's not really a massive shock, especially. Yeah. The timings and the stars did seem to align for this to happen at this point. And I'd be surprised with organisations as big as Dublin Football, and especially over the last number of years, haven't been so successful, that you can nearly guarantee that the county boards have succession plans in place well in advance. And obviously they can't plan too far in advance because there's variables that can be accounted for, but they definitely, I'd say, have their eye on people and potential subjects for succession. So yeah, it's there's a lot of chatter about it at the moment, but I think it seems to be the kind of expected play.
When whatever the 2025 version of the Sunday dinner table is, a WhatsApp group or whatever, do you find that you and your families and your dads obviously are more, what's the word, like with this stuff, can they be very critical, or critical I don't mean in the negative sense, but like analytical of it, or is there a kinder trait to them given that they've been there and done it and know that it's not an easy gig?
Yeah, I think it would be quite analytical in terms of how you'd discuss maybe the intricacies of how it came about and what's their background and who they're bringing it, because there's just a good level of knowledge as to
how those things happen. Yeah,
and who's who, and the GA circles are relatively small. But I think there is definitely a sense of maybe empathy towards the pressures that go on with it, and I'd like to think maybe we're not as innocent as we think, but I'd like to think you'd kind of refrain from maybe like the throwaway comments or the sort of easy, maybe thoughtless comments that can be made about people in that sphere, because you have a bit of an appreciation as to what's going on there, and you've seen like good and bad days that you understand. It's not necessarily there's so many factors that go in to try and generate a result, but often the manager is the figurehead, so the easy person to say whether as to why it went right or why it went wrong. So yeah, there's definitely a bit more of an understanding. But yeah, we actually had a barbecue at my sister's house last night, and this did come up and you talk about it in quite a level of detail. Again, given your own like sporting interests and just understanding of it. Yeah.
I think managers in general nowadays have so much to answer for with regard, like you see it so much in soccer, like they get such a short window to prove themselves. And I just think that kind of magnifying glass that they seem to be under is increasing. And their role obviously in assembling a backroom team and assembling a forwards coach, a backs, like it's such a massive role nowadays that all these appointments are huge news when they come about.
Well, funny, Joe's piece is a very good piece this morning and very complimentary towards Joe Brennan. We get into it in a second, but he himself talks regularly about the cult of the manager and what a negative thing that is. Maybe what you're touching on. The bit about the carelessness of some of the commentary, which can be absolutely the case. It was something that Brian O'Driscoll touched on. He was in during the week and he was talking about having watched one of the Lions games from the stands in the middle of a load of fans, which maybe wouldn't he'd normally be on punditry or whatever it might be, but just hearing some of the comments and this is my word, not his, but like how uneducated they were, like how they didn't really seem to understand probably a lot of what was going on. What about you when you're at your chosen sports and you're around people who haven't been to where you've been and you're hearing what's going on? Is it generally what game are you watching?
I was at the All-Ireland final with my wife recently, and she had to hold me back because the amount of times people around me were giving out, why is Michael Murphy not bringing that free back out? I'm like, because he can't. Like, that's not the rule. I know it's a new rule, but it's been in play for whatever the last 7 months.
Was that the one that was just inside?
There was two. One was just a foul that happened maybe a few yards inside in front of the post, and then that one 2 minutes later, he had forced
had to go from
Paul Murphy, I think, to come inside. Right. So the free is from where he played it.
Yeah.
And the fella beside me, Donegal, man, cursing Murphy under, and I was like, well,
Exact same happened beside me.
Yeah, I wouldn't have much bad to say about Michael Murphy, to be honest, and I certainly wouldn't if I didn't know the rules and critique. So I find it a little bit harder. I'm a little bit heightened that way. That's just a recent example that I found funny. But at the games, yeah, I find it hard. But even in recent weeks, I always take online commentary with a huge pinch of salt. But like the six, say, Desi Farrell's possibly got over the last couple of years. And you're like, well, there's a fella that's
put it all out there.
Yeah, and he's won 2 senior All-Irelands on top of all his underage success. You know, he's in a pretty illustrious group there. So yeah, I think you were saying earlier about the kind of the soccer element of that, like kind of magnified desire for success. I think that's something Chair Brennan's going to face in Dublin, given the level of focus on the capital, the most successful team in recent times, and all the rest. So it's probably heightened in Dublin a little bit. But I often thought like that was just so ill informed. You know, to win 2 All-Ireland championships was no mean feat. Like for years, Dublin were crying out to do that. Like
it's probably coming off the back of obviously Jim Gavin's reign.
Yeah, definitely.
It's so near impossible to top that or to even get close. So everything was probably going to seem like a down step. I just think with all of that sort of stuff, like everybody's got an opinion. And I think one of the things for me that's most admirable about sports people and people who are involved in sport is they're putting themselves out there every day. You know, you're laid quite bare results wise. You can win, you can lose, and you're at the mercy of all of these opinions, whether educated or not. I think that's what's quite one of the parts for me is most admirable about sports people and people involved in management and stuff like that, is they're the ones willing to take the risk on to be kind of torn down like that, you know.
I try to go back to that man in the arena quote with that. And sometimes even in your own disappointing days, you try and reflect on it, or when I see someone laying into somebody, I'll kind of try and frame it around that a little bit. But
even sometimes I'll catch myself watching a football match, like, you know, what's he at, and then afterwards you reflect, and from playing sport myself and being involved in it, I'm sure that there was people watching me thinking the exact same thing that I was thinking about watching that match. So an awareness of it is and people's emotions are involved as well. You know, like they're probably waiting 10, 11 years for an All-Ireland in Donegal, and the emotions are built up. We're not rational when we're emotional. So do you got all that going.
Do you go to much tennis? Competitive tennis?
I go to a bit. Yeah, I go to a bit. I was in Madrid this year with a friend of mine who was playing in Madrid, and I watch a little bit. I was unemployed for the summer, so I went to Canada as a coach with a friend of mine again who was playing a couple of events over there, and I enjoy it. It's fun. It's looking at it from a non-playing perspective. You get a totally different look. Again, like I just mentioned, like raw emotions and personal emotions aren't involved. You can look at things a lot more rationally and without emotion. But yeah, it's a totally different look. Like, I don't know if you plan on going into management or whatever at some stage, but it's definitely an eye-opener. It's definitely an eye-opener looking at it from a non-playing perspective.
Yeah, even like I had a little taste going to support the Meath team this year a little bit, and like big games, I wasn't quite in that emotional fan space because I could kind of nearly appreciate too much of what they're. Do you know, you're kind of watching with a different eye on it, and found it very hard to be critical of them in any way. And I'm sure there's a middle ground where you could, if you've picked up on what we're after saying here last year, it's like no one's allowed to say a bad word about it. That's not the case. Like I and what you said about the emotion is completely fair. But I found myself kind of like almost in my own little bubble at the matches because I was nearly too understanding of the difficulties of it. So when things aren't going right, I found it very difficult to like let the same shout a fella beside me might shout or whatever. Yeah, it's different when you have that,
and you understand the impact of it too if you're on the pitch.
For sure.
I think that's a big part.
For sure.
What age are you?
31.
That was a good question you just asked you there a second ago that you brushed past. Like,
there you go.
Oh, the management. Well, I'd like to think I can keep playing, but I'm struggling to do that even at the moment. So
how are the injuries and all that sort of stuff? Is it?
Not great. I missed our first round with Dunboyne last week. So since 2012, I'd missed 3 championship games. I was overseas with work. I missed 3 group games, and other than that, I've played them all. So that was a tough one, and we lost. So it's backs against the wall now.
So you were out with a hamstring, was it?
Yeah. I've had 2 back surgeries, so I get a I've had both issues with both hamstrings this year.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
So management might be closer than I'd like it to be.
Yeah, it's tough.
The experience of your dad's doesn't put you off that sort of stuff, does it?
No, I don't think so. I think someone asked me recently would I rather the coaching or the management, because obviously certainly in football it's become nearly two different streams altogether, whereas say when my dad first started it was the one, and I know in some ways the coaching might be a little bit of a nicer gig than that, because you don't get the same the same fallback. So
there's a lot more admin-y stuff involved in the management than the coaching. I think I know from my dad's perspective, he'd be the same. He loves the coaching and he loves being involved, but the management aspect is probably very different.
But what appeals to me then about the management side is the dealing with people part of it. Like that's something I'd be quite interested in. But you definitely burden a lot more. There's a lot more emotional baggage that goes with it.
Sure.
We mentioned Joe Brawley's piece. There's a couple of great anecdotes in it, including one about his friend who passed away recently, Joe O'Neill, and you can pick up the piece to get into that. But the bit that we'll focus on, he's gushing, I'd go as far as to say, about Ger Brennan. And as you say, Shane, he spoke to Pat Gilroy, who they would have been clubmates together, won Club All-Irelands, and Pat would have managed him obviously for Dublin as well. And over the early years, he quotes Pat Gilroy here about the regime, I think it's fair enough to say, that he was running. He says Ger Brennan was part of a core group along with Dennis Bastick, Michael Darragh Macaulay and Rory O'Carroll that could not be sickened, so he was working them to the ground essentially. He goes on to say here, when I say I dogged them, Joe, I dogged them. It got to the stage where I was trying to break those four. I got locked into a battle with them. It was a Mexican standoff. It was torture and very probably illegal. It definitely couldn't be found in any sports science manual. But he didn't say, I don't think, whether they were broken or not at the end. But Ger Brennan, a man of tough character, it seems. I'd well believe he'd be last man standing. I've played with plenty of fellas over the years who, if you were to do, say, like a yo-yo test or some sort of fitness test, they mightn't necessarily top the charts. But if you did like a physical endurance session where your mind has to take over, they could outlast a lot of fellas. And I wouldn't be surprised if he kind of falls into that category. It's the first time since 2004 that Dublin won't be defending Leinster champions going into the year. They haven't won an under-20 All-Ireland since 17 or a Leinster at that grade since 20. So there was 6 words in that context in the middle of this piece that absolutely jumped out at me, and so open to the floor afterwards. This is purely based on the appointment of Ger Brennan, because that's the context of the entire piece in the lead into this. Another Kerry Dublin golden era beckons. Big statement.
Yeah. I mean, I think the struggles of Dublin football in the last few years are pretty overstated. Like, they're not in a bad state. As you rightly said, like, it's impossible to match up to what they had for a few reasons. They had an absolute generational group of players that it's I don't think it's a production line issue that you're not replacing them. They were just exceptional players, but they certainly won't be too far away. The Kerry one is the big thing. You're kind of looking at the age profile of that team and the style of play now, obviously with the new rules, and it's hard to see how they won't be very competitive most years. And if a team is likely to kind of compete with them, hard to look past Dublin, or possibly I feel like that Tyrone team are on the verge of coming with all the work and success that's gone in underage there. But a
Dublin Kerry golden era in the context of like Louth coming on in Leinster, who knows how long that lasts. Meath coming on big time in Leinster, like Galway are thereabouts. Who knows where Mayo are at? Donegal are definitely there. Maybe Tyrone or Ma are there. Like, just in the context of all of that, it felt like a giant 6 words that I'm not 100% sure I buy.
Yeah, no, it is. And like, even like the Leinster Championships at its most exciting that it's been in years. So it's not, I don't think you're looking at the same level of domination. What I'd be interested in, so when these new rules were brought in, I remember having a good few discussions, particularly with my brother, and kind of felt, well, what you're going to get now is the better teams just winning. You're kind of negating, like in all other sports, or most of the sports anyway, you have ways of tactically stinking it out a little bit, whether it's a low block, a kicking game in rugby, and trying to compete with a team that's maybe technically, athletically superior to you. And for the vast majority of the season, I was eating my words saying, well, that hasn't happened. There's been upsets, there's been all this, but come kind of semi-final stage, it kind of was laid. I felt it was laid bare a little bit, and I'm just interested to see, is that going to transfer?
What do you mean by that? That it was
that basically the team with the best players and forwards in particular are just going to win.
Okay.
And I know that's very simplistic.
Or David Clifford on your team.
Yeah, that helps. He counts for a bit of that. But I mean, David Clifford, Sean O'Shea, Paddy Clifford, and that's,
they've a number of them.
Yeah, and that's where obviously Jim McGuinness came in for a lot of stick for a defensive game plan that worked against every other team, not working against a team that has the best array of forwards and not getting tied on Paddy Clifford and all the rest. So I'm just wondering, as teams kind of got to grips with the rules throughout the year, come the end of it, are we ultimately looking with, and I know this is very simplistic, there still have to be tactical nuances and all the rest, but how many upsets are you going to get now when the better teams start manipulating these rules to, because what these rules effectively are saying is, let's just have a shootout, let's have high scores, go, you know, it's obviously a lot more difficult to defend, and I understand why it was brought in, but I'm wondering, will the likes of Kerry and possibly one or two others who are better equipped personnel wise, will they pull ahead at a time when you said otherwise it looks like it's possibly shaped to be a bit more competitive?
Yeah,
I don't know if that's what he was getting at in that piece specifically, but that's the view that I might have. Yeah,
very fair, because I definitely felt sort of pre the whole thing that all teams would take the year to try and figure out like not only just the opposition but almost themselves to a degree, and we probably won't see the true picture of the entire thing maybe until next year.
Yeah.
Well, I think in general the year in itself was the most enjoyable year of football in a long time, like a long time. I'd be a football fan through my family and all that sort of stuff, but definitely from a personal perspective,
all those 1 point losses for Westmeath weren't.
No, it wouldn't. Yeah, it wouldn't have deterred me. I think the new rules are an unbelievable addition to the sport. I think it was dying out a little bit with all the ball possession and holding and stuff like that, and hand passing across the 45 line. Now there's still your element of that, but it's around the arc and it's trying to get David Clifford on the ball.
Oh,
yeah.
I just think the unknown in sport creates excitement, and it creates, you know, that sense of excitement in fans and people who are interested in the sport. And I think this year was an unbelievable year of Gaelic football.
I think I mentioned it on the slot last week as well. There was, even in that rules interpretation bit, there was just before the now famous bit, just before half time, where Kerry get the ball and they're going lateral, and they do that for 2 minutes or whatever it was, a minute and a half, and then obviously your man comes up and he kicks his unbelievable 2-pointer. There was a Kerry couple sat beside me, and the exasperation out of them as this thing began. And I am clearly no expert and nor near the level, but I was sitting there quietly going, will you relax? They're just trying to kill the clock, and he's going to come up and boot a 1-pointer or a 2-pointer, and it'll be all rosy. It
was like when Sean Kavanagh used to throw that dummy. Every single person knew what was going to happen there, and you couldn't stop it.
It seems unmarkable, doesn't it? Like, it actually seems unmarkable. Like he was absolutely man-marked,
glued to him,
and one stride he seems to be able to get away.
It's
unbelievable.
He's a freakish mix of athleticism, technical skills, and I think he showed his tactical cuteness in that game too.
It's such a unique game, and I know we overplay that at times, but I was reading a report in the Kerry Man online last night about David Clifford. The Kerry Intermediate Championship is in full swing, and David Clifford is, needless to say, the main attraction. He kicked 1-8 for Fossa. They beat John Mitchell's, and Damien Stack had this report in the Kerry Man, and he had kicked 1-7 from 8 chances, reported Damien Stack in the paper, in the first half while in first gear, and he only added a point in the second half while practically in neutral. So you can only imagine. But I didn't see what the attendance was, actually. I was looking to see, could they tell us what it was.
I saw a clip on Clubber, and there looked to be a decent, healthy crowd.
Not what you'd expect for a normal sort of intermediate.
No.
But and Paddy didn't play, but you'd turn up for the Kerry Intermediate Championship for that alone. Right, we shall see what the attendance is at Croke Park this afternoon as well. 28,000, just under, I think, was the official attendance last year for the Cork-Galway Camogie final, and obviously the other grades that happened before that, and there'll be a repeat today, and plenty of coverage of the games across the papers today. I think we decided we were going to hone in, initially at least, on the Mark Gallagher piece in the Mail on Sunday, and last week we were chatting about the Heatherton dynasty with all the connections there in Dublin. This week it's the Cahillans, and by association the Clearys of Castlehaven. So you have the Cork captain Maeve, and then her sister Orla, who'll play corner forward today, and then sister Grania, who's out injured at the minute. Brother Damien, who obviously played in the All-Ireland hurling final a few weeks ago. Dad Niall Cahalane, as if it needs saying, Cork football legend. Mother Eilish, sister of Nullig, who is more Cork football royalty. Bear with me. Only the 9 All-Ireland football medals for Nullig, of course, one of the all-time greats. on that great team of the 2000s and beyond, and Uncle John Cleary, who you will know is the current county football manager for the men. So we decided we'd discuss football dynasties, and sure, look who we have in front of us. But there's
a few more All-Ireland medals in that.
Well, there is in most houses, to be fair. But that bit of like, you see, I often see that thing where you have brothers who achieves, at a really high level, or dads who've achieved. Is there a bit of it, and you're uniquely enough placed to answer this to both of you, a bit of it having seen, around the house, that this stuff can be achieved, as opposed to plenty of other houses where there isn't somebody that you can look at and go, this thing is within grasp. Most people, I don't mind saying the house that I grew up. My dad did play minor county football for Longford at a certain point. But there is that bit of like, geez, that thing is beyond me. Whereas that wasn't your experience.
Yeah, it's probably normalised to an extent. Like, I would have grown up and you'd have heard a lot of stories of kind of like the 80s, 90s. Me, so I was born in 94, so kind of vague memories of 99 and even the loss in 2001. But we would have kind of grown up around stories of it, and my dad kept playing football up till he won a county medal at 40 with Dunboyne. So you were just always around this, and even like playing senior club football in Dunboyne was so normalised. I was up at every training. You'd meet, if you're out and about, you'd meet, current or past county players. So just being in those circles, I think was quite normalised. Like, Dad was on a panel in '88 when they won. Jerry obviously played a lot. And
Jerry is like more royalty, obviously.
Yeah.
Big part of that Sean Boylan years.
Yeah. He'd have whatever he started in the well, actually, ironically enough, I think he got sent off for a confrontation with Niall Cahalane in one of those finals. So this is all piecing together nicely. Yeah. So no, it's just normalised, and I suppose like I'd be interested to get Simon's taking a minute, kind of going a different sport. But like the big thing I would have found growing up was if I went to Meath under 14 trials, or even playing a game against another 10, someone heard your surname, they go, oh, which of them is you? Like, there was 7 brothers, so 7 brothers and 1 sister in my dad's family. So it kind of meant you always, I thought it probably gave you an eye, like say a trial, someone would keep an eye on your man. Oh, well, he's a McEntee, I wonder is he any good because Andy and Jerry and whatever else. But then there was probably a heightened sense of expectation on top of it too. So there was good and bad to it, like, but definitely normalised playing at that level.
If I continue to do this thing, there's a path here for me.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. And obviously there's lots of good advice and steers, and some welcome and some not so welcome truths and advice along the way. But I would have thought the pros very much outweighed the cons of maybe a little bit of extra pressure. But the big thing, as I've probably said a few times now, is just that normalising. It's not a mystery about playing at that level, I suppose. I'm not sure how you found it.
Yeah, I would absolutely. The normalisation is a definite part of it. I would say, my family all went different sporting directions. I know you work with Elizabeth, and she's gone down the triathlon route. Myself, tennis. My sister Vicky in football, and my brother in golf. But I think one of the kind of overriding high level factors is the standards.
Yeah.
I think from a young age, and growing up playing all sports, I think the standards you hold yourself to, and you're held to from your parents or from outside family, I think that's an important part. And I think the same as yourself, my dad being involved in management and teams, and you're always around dressing rooms, you're kicking ball around, and you're always surrounded by it. I think that side of things, it really creates that want for yourself to achieve. And I think being around that all the time, you're looking at examples constantly, and you're constantly looking at examples of people who are achieving highly, and like you see it in a lot of sports. From my sport in particular, you've got the Korda family, who's Nelly Korda's #1 in the world. Sebi Korda, who I played juniors with, is 20 in the world, and his dad won the Australian Open, and I think his mum was top 30 as well. So like, there's definitely a common denominator. You've got the Williams sisters, in these sporting families, and the Cahalans are no different by the looks of things.
Yeah, well, we're trying to figure a way to tie in the Jameses of LeBron fame and you know, the Cordas and the Williams with the Cahalans. Have you ever seen that Robin van Persie clip? I'm going to butcher the story now, but he talks about he's at Sun's training and the Sun. Maybe it might have been a match and the Sun didn't play, whatever it was, and he's coming back and he's giving out about the coach and the journey of the way back. And Robin van Persie says to him, I'm dramatising it here, but it was some version of "you're a loser," and he was like, "What?" And he was like, "With that mentality, you're coming back, you're in the car blaming the coach. What could you have done better to, you know, better yourself or whatever?" I just thought it was a really instructive thing. He, I'm sure, didn't word it as harshly as that, but there was a bit of sort of home truths that maybe another parent would have either maybe gone over the top with, like, you know, uneducated sort of advice, or been too sort of soft on it. But that was kind of felt like a good thread. What was your experience of that?
Yeah, I think the standards bit you're talking about there, like little things I would have been exposed to quite young. Like if I went, Dad would have been involved in a lot of the teams I was involved in, even like soccer, whatever was competitive, he kind of wanted to be involved with, and was probably thinking he could shape a few of the younger than Boyne lads playing soccer for football in the future. But either way, either way, he was involved, and a few like really clear memories. One, he would have taken out of the trainings and he wasn't around one night, and really nice man was running the training in his place, and a few of us just started messing. We were probably 10 or 11. We just started messing for the whole night, like, and didn't really give. And I got some pretty strong words on it, but it wasn't. It was all, and so it was about kind of like respect and I suppose discipline and the standards like that you're kind of wasting your time, wasting everybody else's time, that maybe another parent who wasn't in that sort of, I'm not going to say elite sport, but serious sport mindset would appreciate, you know, like they'd kind of say, oh, they're having fun with their friends, and sure, what's the harm?
Word had got back to him that you were actually gold. And similar to the one time I was called into we had a brilliant principal in primary school, huge football man from Mayo, a guy called Willie Lyons, and he'd actually coached the adult team in Dunboyne, so he knew my dad from before I went to the school. And a similar sort of setting happened when I hadn't been picked on a certain team, so a few others were sent to training. And again, I'm painting a bad picture of myself again today. I was just messing with one of the lads, and I was a fairly, like, I don't know, nondescript fella in primary school, no trouble. But I got brought into the office that day and told, you used to go home and tell your dad about this because he'd be disgusted with you. The same principal told me once after a game in 5th class, so I'd say I was 10, to hype me up for the second round game. He said, if your uncle hadn't been at the first round game, he'd have walked away with his head in his hands, ashamed of you. Oh, Jesus.
And I think about it now, I'm going, this probably isn't really.
It wouldn't pass 2025.
No, I don't think so. But I remember it. And I remember thinking, okay, well, I wouldn't want my uncle to be ashamed of me, so I'm going to try and play it better today. So yeah, definitely, like, go back to the first bit, like that kind of, I know exactly what you're talking about, Van Persie. I got a lot of hard truths like that when I was younger, but they were fair and they were in. And then it got to an age where it was like, I'd say maybe 13 or 14, I started to show a little bit. And I was like, if you want to be serious about it, be serious about it, and I'll give you all this. Or if you want to just be fun and whatever else, it'll be fun, but you won't progress with it, but I won't put them.
I definitely do think growing up with it, and like those formative years of 4, 5, 6, you know, growing up with elite sport or high level sport in your family, I think there's a certain level expected of you if you're participating. I think as you're, you know, in those formative years, that's bedded into you a little bit, and then you grow up through it. And then personally, I'm super competitive, and I always have been, and I think that's probably embedded in those years. Not just, you know, as the older you grow, the more competitive you get at things, you might have some genetical capabilities that are probably passed down, but I think in general, just being surrounded by high performance kind of breeds that into you from a young age.
Did you find a difference that it wasn't your dad's sport, that you were?
No, I played GAA growing up as well. It didn't really matter what the sport was, to be honest. It was the same as what you just said. Like if you're willing to put it in, if you're willing to take it seriously. Like I left school at 15. Like that's a huge decision, not just for me but for my parents to make. I don't know what I'm doing at 15. Like they're taking on a huge risk there, and the conversation was always around. I think they knew in me that I wasn't going to mess around or you know, not put 100% in, because that wasn't my style. And yeah, the one you know, lesson was, or the one non-negotiable was, you put it all in, and we'll do everything, to facilitate what your goals and dreams are.
I'm just taking notes here for my own 8-year-old, 6-year-old and 3-year-old at home who's going to hurling mad.
Tape a racket or tape a hurl to his hand.
Is that the way? The youngest fella particularly needs no taping. He's obsessed with the thing. He's a prodigy. I've never mentioned that yet, but no pressure. So yeah, that piece is really good, and I always like my benchmark of the Sunday papers is about like, have I read something that makes me more interested in the sport that's happening that day or upcoming, and definitely that profile of Maeve Cahalane and her family, as you can tell, a dynasty, will help you do that. On the previous page in the Mail on Sunday as well. Shane McGrath, we watch when it's good, not because we should. And for anybody who's been paying any attention, I think to the Camogie build-up this week, you'll be familiar with this one. Brian Malloy, the Camogie Association President, has called on everyone from the participating counties of the 6 counties involved today and anyone involved in Camogie in all the counties around the country to turn out today. I think the overriding feeling being that it's not the most egregious thing to say, but Sarah Donovan was on with us during the week, and she was saying that there has to be more to it than just this sort of 11th hour rallying call. We'll see what the attendance is today. It was 28,000 for the same senior game, at least last year anyway. We'll see today. But Shane McGrath gets into it, as you can tell from the headline. He says there are reasons why the men's finals are the biggest and most important dates in the Irish sporting calendar. They're not new, and they're not rooted in misogyny or any other culture war trigger point. Malloy is entitled, if not obliged, to drum up support for Camogie's finals day, but in these comments he fell into the trap of equating support for a team to a moral duty. He says this is a long-standing failure of some League of Ireland diehards. They'll soon be working themselves into high dudgeon with the return of the Premier League. So that bit of it needs to be a bit more dimensional than just guilting people into go to the games.
Yeah, I think that's. I think that's, we were chatting a little bit outside about this. I think that's a very short-sighted. You might get a knee-jerk reaction once off that, but if that is your marketing ploy for promoting your game, I don't think there's a great lifespan in it. I think we have to acknowledge ladies sports, from a societal and cultural perspective, is coming from a different starting point to men's, and it's making strides. But ultimately, it's as he said, we watch it when it's good, not because it's a quality. You got to give some people something to support about. And I'm going to go with a really good example from female sports with the Meath ladies and the last number of years. My wife's been involved with that team. I was going to National League games, I'd say as recent as 2018, played on the AstroTurf in Dunganny, where there's not even a proper viewing area, with a few parents and boyfriends and partners at the games, and that was it. And over a number of years, they went on a journey that just captured the imagination, I think, nationally a little bit, but certainly within Meath, the misses an intermediate, into winning an intermediate, doing the unimaginable and going to, and they have developed a core fan base. Do they have as many people going to an average National League game as the men's team? No, but where is it versus where it was a number of years ago? It's a different.
It's so much better.
It's a different world. I went down to Tullamore for their semi-final this year against Kerry, and stopping in Applegreen, going to and from, and there's carloads of young girls with their parents going to watch the Meath ladies, because this has been normalised as a successful team to support, with traits and characteristics that supporters want to get behind. They're not going because the clubs rang the parents and said, listen, Jesus, it's bad form now if you don't bring the girls down to watch the Meath team. They're going because it's growing and growing, and there are challenges put in the way, obviously, in terms of maybe investment and funding, and the whole integration piece, I think has a lot to answer for in terms of that as well. But you got to look at a sustainable way of getting supporters on board. I said that was sustainable, and that was done by a county board, a management team, and a group of players that have made that team worthy of support. And I know they'll be disappointed with last week, but they've had really big support this year, and they'll have big support again next year because they're consistently competing there. So, okay, that's on an individual team level, a one team level, but I think that's the model to go after. Similar to the Dublin ladies. Yes, there's population, all this, but they've developed a fan base by being consistent, by being the team that stopped this Cork domination and being consistently competitive for a number of years.
And they're out there telling their stories as well, is the thing. I don't know how much of that the Camogie Association and the sponsors, I'm sure they've done bits and bobs of it or whatever, but there's a much deeper bit there around the telling the stories of the teams and the players involved, and also the bit of growing the game, which hurling obviously faces as well, with trying to grow the game beyond a core of 7 or 8 counties. I know they've introduced this, and he talks about it, Brian Malloy. He has a piece in the Sunday Independent today, a self-penned piece, and I kind of, to be honest, I'd expected a little bit more from it because, you know, there's been a lot of narrative during the week about the conversation we've just had where you say people must turn up. And I kind of thought, oh, well, maybe this is in response to that and it's going to kick it on a level. And to be honest, it kind of just repeats a lot of that from Brian Malloy. But, you know, to be fair to him, as I said, it's not that he doesn't raise a lot of interesting points and that they're not worth raising. Of course they are.
Yeah, I think I'd probably fundamentally agree with that. The initial article you quoted there, it's...
Yeah, Shane McGrath's piece.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one. I don't think, like Shane said, it's sustainable. I think it's definitely improving though, right? And it's not like you can liken it to a ton of different sporting events. Like at the lower levels of professional sport, there's nobody watching as well, and you know I don't think you go guilting people into watching these things. I think over time and like you said, through storytelling and you know, personalizing the stars of these games more. I think that'll build in itself. These things take time. And it definitely has improved. Like if you look at attendance from, I don't have the exact data, but from a number of years ago to recently, I'd say it's definitely improved in ladies sport.
Yeah, it is growing, and there is the bit. I'll actually, was it covered in this? It was. I'll briefly quote Brian Malloy's bit as well, because it's the other context of this conversation about people who talk about the Scort conversation that happened. Well, if everybody who had an opinion about that turned up to the game, like that's not a comparison. No. It's not like anyway. Each year, he writes here, there are 4 All-Ireland Sundays. 2 are invariably sold out, 2 are not. That the 2 men's finals attract full houses while the women's equivalents do not should concern us all. If we're serious about achieving true quality in Gaelic games, then a deliberate and substantial overinvestment in the female games is required, not just financially, but also in infrastructure, visibility, time, energy and focus. It means all of us backing the women's games with the same commitment that is shown to the men's. During Scoretgate, he says, we saw a groundswell of support from TDs and senators, commentators, sports stars, influencers and thousands of ordinary people. My message to all of you this weekend is simple. If you support Gaelic games, go to the Camogie finals. If you support women in sport, go to the Camogie finals. If you're in a position of influence, use that platform to bring others with you. As I said, I'm not suggesting that Brian Malloy is not making some good points there. It just feels a little bit like this is a wee problem.
It's so generalised. Like I have 2 sisters both involved in high level sport, and I'd have to ask them, but I don't think any they'd all support equality in sport. They'd all support equality in women's sport, but I don't think any of them either of them are going to the Camogie final tomorrow or today. So it's so generalised that you can't just say. You can't drop a blanket statement and be like, if you support this, you have to go. It's personal interest. If people want to go, they'll go. I don't know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, and I think he raises some very important bits about the investment side of it, because to get that, I suppose, exposure and even to improve the conditions that our female counterparts in ladies football and camogie are playing in, like that will improve their performance levels. That's quite simple. Like, so I completely agree with that. And again, as I said, that ultimately that's going to be integration piece. So I'd rather see him make a real push on integrating, because then all our funds are pooled, and just like a footballer or hurler in Meath, Kerry, Kilkenny, Waterford is entitled to the exact same supports, expenses, whatever else. Now our female counterparts will get that. As it stands, as separate organisations, they will not get it. So that's an area I'd be going after instead of, you know, talking about people filling the stands. Another kind of sub point that someone raised before was, given that the male and the female sports are in different, I suppose, stages of progression, and life cycle even. I think there was a real trick missed by moving the calendar in line with the men's. Because like the men's weren't facing the same problem. They're going to fill out Croke Park for All Ireland finals, no problem. Yeah. If the women had kept even, say, an August or some other final date where you're not competing like 4 finals back to back, there's an element of fatigue in it. If they had just spaced that out slightly, and I know this split season causes loads of different trains at the top, but I think that's a no-brainer for them. They could dominate the month of, or say the latter half of August, when people are kind of going, oh geez, there's no more inter-county here. Okay, there's another 2 weekends to go after. I think there's practical measures like that rather than these impassioned pleas towards this is your moral duty, like.
Yeah. If we're serious about equality, we need to be serious about support for Camogie. It starts with going to games. It's the closing words. Listen, they are what they are. There's a lot of work to be done, I feel. And as I said, in the same way as hurling to promote the game around, Shane McGrath's piece closes with their tentative ambitions of a crowd of 40,000 for today's 3 finals, which would break new ground for Camogie and should give cause for huge satisfaction after an often traumatic year. It provides the basis for future growth. Guilt doesn't. He says.
Agreed.
Your point about the quality of the products as well is something that's touched on by Christy O'Connor in the Sunday Times today as well, how Galway can ease the pain of last year's heartbreak. And like, there's a great context to that about, you know, they were level, I think, with 6 minutes to go last year. There was a bit of a controversial goal. Cork have a stronger bench and close out the game. So there's all of these like subplots to this thing that we should be communicated and people get behind. But just in terms of the overall quality, Christy writes, when Donald O'Rourke, the Cork hurling coach, worked with Galway, they won when they won the 2021 All-Ireland. He spoke about how Cathal Murray, the now Galway manager, had not just changed the face of Galway Camogie, but the game in general. Murray and Robbie Lane reshaped the way Camogie teams prepared, but how much they'd driven the S&C culture. Claire Thornton, who was with Kerry last year when they won the All-Ireland ladies football title, was added to the setup this year. The Galway backroom team listed for today is as high as 19. Wow. They're getting up there with the Dubs footballers, the way they're going. But that's the way it needs to go to improve the overall quality of product and skills and fitness and all of that.
Yeah, and when I say quality, I don't mean like I don't mean that in any way insulting, as if there's no lack of skill. There certainly is, but like elite sports at this stage takes on way more than just that, and a lot of it is the physical preparation, and this can't be done just with like, you know, hard work and committed players. It's the likes of that background research or resources and all the rest that goes with it, whether it's S&C, nutrition, psychology, all these things. I mean, they're used at high level sports for a reason, because they work, and they're just going to elevate the standards across the game. So seeing individual counties bring that in is only going to help
drive one to another, and
it just creates more competition within the county and competition for spots, and it drives the overall standards.
Christy also says the Cork machine that is now unbeaten in 20 championship matches. Cork's aggregate winning margin in their 5 championship matches this year is 100 points, which is phenomenal. But I think it's Cork and Galway very much leading the way and everybody else behind. And the words of the Cork manager, Ger Manley, after winning back-to-back titles last year, we should be going for 5 in a row. Posted up, I'm sure, on the Galway pressing for this afternoon. There's an Aoife Sheehan piece, former Limerick player, in the Sindo today, asking if the Camogie Championship has become too predictable, which is worth checking out as well. It's definitely one of those sort of more deep pieces. So on we go. We'll go to the back page of the Sunday Times next, and it's David Walsh. Scheffler and Pogacar are 2 of the best I've seen. Their dominance is far from dull. So I suppose the overall theme of this is, like, you know, you have 2 people in Pogacar and Scheffler who are ahead of the rest, I think, at the minute. Certainly when they're on, and it can be a boring watch at times, I suppose, the thing. Couple of little quotes here, and we'll throw it open to you there. David Walsh writes, there are folk who find their victory, as in the 2 lads, the victories uninteresting, almost difficult to watch, too little jeopardy and all that. I enjoy watching both compete. For sure, if Scheffler's leading a tournament, you can leave the room, make a cup of tea and return knowing that little will have changed, and if he has, it will change back. He says, excellence isn't boring. Their kind of dominance is rare and should be cherished.
Yeah,
Excellence is not boring.
I think it's, you know, I don't really agree with the boring part. I think one of an incredible thing to watch is the best in the world in full flight, regardless of how much they're winning by. As an avid golfer, watching Scotty Scheffler, he's quite a bland character, and he's very simple with, you know, he's not out there much at all, but he's unreal to watch. I went to the Open this year and just sat and watched them on the range for
did you?
half an hour. I didn't have any interest in going out watching the course. Just sat and watched them on the range, and just the level of consistency and, you know, focus that he brought just to a range session. And I just think watching athletes at the top of their game in full flight, regardless of the competition levels, obviously great if it's a Sinner and Alcaraz who are both doing it at the same time, then it's, you know, that's an added bonus. But I definitely don't think it's boring watching, you know, people at the top of their games.
You went to the Open to watch somebody practice.
I did.
And I had no interest, quote unquote, I had no interest in going out. What?
It was impossible to see Rory.
Right.
Just
You
too
couldn't
many.
watch him. So I just said, look, I'm gonna hedge my bets here and get up at the range. And best part, I mean, if you're
Careful with
lucky,
that thing there,
sorry,
you can't hear it, but it makes a lot of booming noise.
if you're lucky, you'll see 2 or 3 shots of Rory. I mean, they're 10 deep on the course for him. But
And what are you watching when you're going up? You're deliberately going to watch the.
yeah, the range practices.
What are you looking out for?
Just how easy they make it look. Like there was quotes about Scheffler on the first, and he knocks it into 2 feet on the last day, and you kind of think at the beginning of the last day he's got a lead, but in the first couple of holes, if someone can make a move, and he kind of just shuts the door on the first hole, hitting it into a foot, and you're like, am I going to watch this for the next 5 hours? Or am I just gonna leave it because we know he's going to win? I don't think it's boring. Obviously, it's not as exciting as if you have 2 people going at it, and they're if it was him and Rory, neck and neck on the last day, obviously it's better TV. But I still wouldn't call it boring watching those guys at the top of their games.
I think it maybe would appeal to like different types of fans. So like an avid golf fan like yourself would probably just be fascinated watching that.
For sure.
But in terms of maybe trying to draw more into it,
Definitely,
there's possibly not the same. That's where I think possibly the boring argument comes from.
Yeah.
Definitely, like there has to be a massive appreciation for how good these people are. But I can see the point where if you're trying to attract, like say, like I'm not a big cycling fan, but by all accounts this was a done deal from a week and a half out, and if you're trying to get new fans into
People
it,
in,
it probably does draw there. But then, what can you do? Like you're not
Well,
going to.
that's the argument for rivalries, isn't it?
Yeah,
That's the argument for rivalries, and how for Nadal, Federer, and Djokovic, how much they did for tennis over the last 20 years, and I think those rivalries and 2 people doing it obviously makes for better television, makes for better engagement from fans and bringing new fans into sport. But yeah, maybe you need to be more involved in a sport to fully appreciate excellence like that.
Yeah, and I think that these periods of dominance are rarely too long term. And then ultimately when the pack catches up, they've all caught up to such a high level that now you have an extent. That's, I suppose, the tennis example you're given there. Like Federer probably came slightly ahead of the
For sure.
two lads, and then they catch up, and then if anyone else wants to get to this, so now all of a sudden you've like a handful at that level as opposed to the one. So it can feel like it's never ending when someone's in this period of dominance, but it is, and then the sport's generally in a healthier place, I'd imagine.
Well, Pogacar is 26, I think, off the top of my head. Like he's a few years ahead of me.
Scary thought.
I have to say, I do need a bit of jeopardy about my sport. Like I appreciate the dominance. Like I really enjoyed Kilkenny when they were dominant. I didn't enjoy the dubs. The dubs were pretty enjoyable, but there was still a jeopardy because they weren't. It's not as if they were blitzing teams.
No, it was typically. So how many replays?
It's the difference between the Leinster Championship and the All Ireland Championship. In the All Ireland, it was all tight, really. I think you need a bit of jeopardy. I don't enjoy that bit of going off to make the tee and coming back, and he's gone from 6 shots to 8 shots.
Eight shots. And that's watchable.
The nature of both those sports as well, like there is large time gap. So if it's not particularly competitive, it's kind of exasperated then because it's spread over a number of hours of viewing
or days.
Whereas, or days, Whereas a football match that becomes uncompetitive is probably competitive for at least the first 20-25 minutes. So now you're looking at 40 minutes versus, as you said, as soon as Scheffler stuck that on the first hole, this is over. So there's a bit of a sport by sport.
It was over long before then. It actually was. Like that's the scary part. It was over halfway through Saturday. Just because we know how good he is.
But like it will miss the mass audience too when it's like that, because you're just not going to get the floating vote.
Of course, I mean, you look at Rory earlier on in the year at the Masters, like that was as engaging, I think, as people who have no interest in golf were, at the edge of their seats for the guts of 4 or 5 hours.
That was some of the, if not the greatest sporting drama that you could ever see.
It was unbelievable.
It was unbelievable.
It'll never be topped.
We had just moved into a new house, a semi-D, and I woke up the next morning going, they're going to think I'm some weirdo. Like I'm shouting at the TV at one in there.
There's
100%.
Yeah,
100%.
But it was incredible. Yeah.
I just think those events are, because they're so infrequent, they mean more when they happen. Like, when are we ever going to see it? We saw it in 2019 with Tiger from a golfing perspective, and we were lucky enough to see it again this year, but you may not see it until the 2030s again.
Good comparison.
Yeah,
that was enjoyable.
I was racking my brain. I'm a huge Tiger fan. But I nearly think Rory topped it this year. Coming back.
But even his dominance was exceptionally enjoyable. Like the swashbuckling Tiger hitting unbelievable shots.
Yeah, and Scheffler maybe suffers from his like perceived personality as well.
Exactly.
Like, you know, Tiger's that aggressive. I thought Scheffler's, and they're mentioned again in that piece, his quotes from a couple of weeks ago. I thought they were. I suppose it's all how you interpret yourself. I thought they were slightly misconstrued. In that I didn't think it was a case that like he hates this or no. And I'd be interested your take on it. I thought, coming from an amateur sport, I kind of took it as like, well, this is my job. This is what I'm good at, and this is what provides security and income for his family. And I've sometimes wondered that, particularly say with, you know, the likes of the AFL, where guys go from this amateur sport to professional. How different does your sport change when
it's
all of a sudden it's your job and income? Your income's dependent on it. I don't know. I don't know what your take on his overall view on that was. I'd be interested from someone who has played.
What's it all about?
Yeah, I loved his interview, to be honest. I would have definitely been from a cut of cloth on the total opposite side of things. My sport and my job was my life. It's definitely not for Scotty Scheffler. I think when you draw a comparison with, like, let's say himself and Rory, I think that I think he'll achieve more than Rory, to be honest. But I actually think Rory's got, from a raw sporting, you know, point of view, I think he's a better golfer. But I also think that Rory views it. Rory seems to always have more weight on his shoulders. Yeah. Whereas this guy just ambles around the place, has his priorities in life, is very comfortable with those. And isn't shy to, like, imagine saying that the Tuesday before and then go and win it on the Sunday.
Yeah. But I think you're right. He was posing the question that we probably all ask at some point or another: what the hell are we doing here? And what the hell is this all about? But he did say within that, I love this. I love doing it. I love being able to practice it in the game.
Sure, he does.
Yeah.
And you have to have got to that level. Like, I think it was jumped on a little bit. I thought it was really interesting. I thought it was quite a refreshing take on it. Yeah,
it's because he was being so honest with it.
Yeah.
Like he's like, and there's a part in here about Spieth saying, you know, he doesn't look after the spotlight and all that sort of stuff. I think what I like about him so much is he's so raw and honest, and there's no hiding what his priorities in life are. I think that's quite refreshing.
Yeah, the Spieth comments felt like he just wants to get away from the game and separate the two, because I know that at one time he felt it was too much and that it was taken with him. I was like, Jesus,
did he?
Is that his story to do? Play and all that, but. So that's David Walsh in the back page of Sunday Times. So it's only right that we go to Paul Kimmage in the Sunday Independent from one to another. I mean, come on, seriously, do I have to join the dots? Is the title of the question here. So yeah, he talks about meeting Johnny. He has met Johnny Sexton in a supermarket, and the Algarve is the context of this piece. He writes, Paul Kimmage here, he was taking a well-earned break after a month in Australia with the Lions, and had just popped down to the store with the kids for some fresh rolls, an organic bottle of wine, and some triple quilted toilet roll. His body is still a time. Toilet roll is just something that nobody should see you buying. That's, you know what I mean? And certainly not be writing about it in the Sun Independent. Yeah. I'm sure he's delighted with that today. Anyway, that notwithstanding, the overall point of the piece. Well, there are 2 points to it, because he talks about that Katie Taylor video that I think everybody would have seen online, where she sent them, you win by will or you win by skill, and if that doesn't work, then you win by will. And that was kind of the main takeaway, and how Jack Conan had quoted it after the second test win, and then it became irrelevant after the final test, says Paul Kimmage. He says, when the team were battered a week later in the final test, when there are 19 pieces running on the Times website and the video isn't mentioned, the video of Katie Taylor, that is, when there wasn't a word about Katie Taylor in yesterday's Irish Times or in Rory O'Connor's insightful interview with Joe McCarthy in The Independent, that's not a slight on Katie, but a reflection on what it was: a ruse, a gimmick, Faz doing his thing, a 5-minute distraction for a group of hardened professionals who knew all about the trenches and what it takes to win. And then I thought of Johnny. So he's a bit cynical about the Katie Taylor video.
Yeah, I just think those sorts of things, and I'd be interested to hear your take on being in GA dressing rooms and stuff like that. Those speeches and those videos, they add to like the building of expectation and you know, towards the event that you're about to partake in. I don't think they make a massive difference, to be honest. I think the motivation and the expectation comes from within. I don't think you need a screen to do it. Now, I'm not saying it was the wrong thing to do by any means. I just think it builds as opposed to getting someone from here to there. I just think it's part of the whole process and building towards something.
Yeah, I think like you can't. That can't be the basis of your motivation.
Yeah.
Like it could be a 1%er, and I've had some brilliant like kind of guest speakers as such, and poor performances the following week, and then I've had weeks where we haven't. But like I wouldn't put it down to the guest speakers.
Give us a couple of examples.
We'd Cody come in once, and you kind of felt like you'd heard all the quotes from him before, and you knew all that. And as soon as he started speaking, I was just.
This was after he'd retired from Kilkenny, or was he still?
He might have still been there.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he was still there. But just his like the whole, you could just feel the energy in the room. Everybody fixated on the energy in which he spoke, and like he was kind of just speaking about standards. And you've probably seen that famous clip he does from a talk, and it wasn't word for word that, but again, you kind of feel the cynic in me was kind of going. I feel like I've heard all these and they probably were similar, but his delivery and everything was so engaging. It was excellent, like really, really good. And I remember, I actually find sometimes it's a long-term effect as opposed to that week
short,
after.
Yeah.
Are we going to? There's stuff he spoke about that day that I'll still remember when you're kind of trying to approach it about standards, or whatever else. We had one other really good one before. And this is quite ironic from Shane Horgan, who's a Meath man. He came in to speak to us, and he kind of spoke about his first, I think he might have said 20 caps or so. He feels like he wasted because he was worried on just holding on to the jersey and just doing enough to stay in it. And I was in, I think he maybe boiled it down to 2 or 3 seasons, and I was in that window, so it should have been really impactful at that stage. And I was also trying to establish it while my dad was the manager. And no matter all the good advice Shane Horgan gave, I stayed in that mindset of and then a couple of years later, maybe a year or two after the fact, kind of went, geez, he's so right in what he was saying, and I've gone and done that. But it still had a good impact that thereafter I went, you know what, cut that now. And so I think the immediate effect may or may not, like, as you said, it's not going to be it's not going to be the reason you win or lose. It could help, but I certainly had good kind of maybe long-standing effects from some of them, even if it wasn't in the week or 2 weeks, or even in Shane Horgan's case, the 6 months or 12 months after. It was after that again where I started going, geez, he was so right. I nearly had to live it myself to realise how right he was. But it was still useful to go, okay, we'll snap out of that now, or else it's going to be.
That's what he was saying. I had to cut ties on those caps.
Except that he had to accept he was an international player, and can he be the best Shane Horgan as opposed to, just doing enough week by week to stay in the team for the following week.
Yeah, I think they're nice, cool moments, aren't they? To like reflect on, like you said, like they're cool memories for you to have. I think, like personally, if I was in a dressing room and Katie Taylor was given this speech, I'd be like, this is cool. Like, she's an absolute legend. Yeah. But I don't think it would impact like you're so amped anyways, like on your own to get out there and play whatever the event you're playing in. I don't think it makes a massive difference as opposed, or like with regard to, how excited you are, or how much motivation you have towards a particular event. I think, like you said, long term those words stick, and they're great lessons from great people. But I don't think in an immediate term. I think if you were to ask the Lions afterwards, was that the reason they won it? They'd probably say no. They'd probably say, their prep, their whole career over the last however many years in building up to being a Lion was more so a reason. But it does contribute. It contributes to the expectation and the build towards a match.
Yeah, he did quote Jack Conan, as I said, from afterwards, saying we had a video from Katie Taylor in the week. It was unbelievably powerful and poignant. It resonated with everyone and really hit home for us. That's a difference between it really hit home for us, and that was the reason we won the test. Obviously, difference. He also just talks about Johnny. The whole point is about joining the dots, and I think at the end, like he says, there's a Women's Rugby World Cup starting soon, and Ireland will play Japan, Spain, and New Zealand. That's the pool stages, and who knows what happens beyond that. He says, "Who do our girls really admire? I wonder what would make a difference. I mean, come on, seriously, do I have to join the dots here?" Which I presume is to say, get Johnny in there. And I was just having to refresh as to what his role with the IRFU was, and had a look on the website, and it is in relation to age grade across the men's and women's game and the senior setup. So I don't know if the plan is to get him in or not. Maybe there's a feeling that having come back from Australia, the timeline is too tight. It might upset the whole situation, but we shall see on that. One to mention, there's a lot of coverage, by the way, on the rugby of the Ireland-Canada game. We mentioned at the very start, Irish struggled to cope with power of the Canadians. Jonathan Brown in the Mail on Sunday. There's plenty more writing on that. Obviously, we are on the brink of the World Cup. And then tennis, finally, we're going to mention, because it's all about razzmatazz and influencers. The Mail on Sunday, Matthew Lamwell, he says, why this year's US Open promises to be the wildest and wackiest yet. Tennis Rich's prize fund, A-listers and influencers galore, and even a reality dating show on YouTube.
There you go.
The soul of tennis
For everything.
is gone, Simon.
Yeah, I don't know. The Americans love, trying to boost an event, and I think with the addition of the mixed doubles, the quick fire mixed doubles 2-day
The week
event
before.
Yeah, it's 1920. I think is it on. It's the week before in the practice week. Most of the players are there for the practice week, anyways. So I think it's it's a money making ploy as well to get ticket sales and stuff like that. Yeah, everyone's benefiting. I mean, the prize pools have gone up over the last number of years. The US Open is definitely the biggest commercial event of all of the 4 Grand Slams. Like, you have superstars there, you have, Kardashians, sports stars, influencers, like you said, always spotted in the crowd. So
I often wonder what that does for sports. Like, it's a bit of a craze. Like, the Lions was one that sort of came to mind when they played Argentina here, and there was like every influencer with 1,000 followers. I'm exaggerating, but they were all given tickets and they were invited along, and they put content up on their channels, and it reaches a wide audience. And obviously, people sit down in a room afterwards and go, "Look at the amount of following eyeballs were on this thing." But like, what's the legacy of that?
Yeah, I don't know how much. I think the whole idea behind that is probably just to bring new eyes.
But what happens with those new eyes? There's my point.
I don't think they stay very long.
Are we saying that like people who've seen a lifestyle influencer go to a Lions game that they're suddenly going to become season ticket holders for Connacht? Like,
I don't think long term. I think it might grab a few stragglers. Like, people would be interested. Taylor Fritz's girlfriend, for example, is a big influencer. And I think a lot of people know her nearly as much as they know him,
right,
for that sort of thing. But I don't think it, a one-time spotting of a celeb influencer at Wimbledon is going to make a massive difference to fan engagement from a wider audience, not long term anyways.
We're probably in a new space with it as well in terms of like this social media outreach, and I'd imagine most sports industries are saying, well, let's try it, because I don't know what the legacy is, but I don't know if anyone does yet. So I wonder, is there a case?
Well, you
okay,
don't find out till afterwards.
Yeah, let's cast the net here, and if we get some level of even if it's commercial success, it mightn't be the fan engagement or the spectator side of it, but there could be commercial. Look, the extreme one is probably Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce.
Yeah.
You've married these two different worlds, and I'm sure the Chiefs have done pretty nicely out of
selling
it.
a bit of merch and
yeah,
and vice versa.
Possibly not.
A lot of Chiefs fans.
Yeah.
I'd go. Matthew Lamwell writes, sorry, I shouldn't be laughing, because like these are like they're trying to grow the game, and I am totally on board with that. I'm a little bit cynical about the legacy of sometimes of how these.
I think it's so new to us, it's so alien to us that we possibly don't see how this actually is a good thing, and it mightn't be, but I don't know.
No, it's fair enough. Be open-minded is what you're saying.
Yeah,
feel free to.
I'm not the most open-minded person normally, so.
But America in general is like just amplify everything, don't they? Like, everything's done bigger, it's done in there, better. It's just big, and the US Open's the kind of cornerstone of that. It's a massive. They have the biggest stadium. It's an event as much as it is a tennis tournament. And they really try to push that.
Another event taking place, he writes here, during Fan Week, a stunt seen by many as a step too far. The filming of a reality TV dating show, Game Set Matchmaker. We'll see Ilana Sadaka, and a former national ice skating champion, now a Pilates instructor and tennis savvy bachelorette, looking for love around the grounds. The fun, flirty and personal show, or her words, will be filmed in the week before the singles begins and broadcast on YouTube during the tournament. The last episode will air on the Saturday of finals weekend. The single lady and the ladies singles.
So she's like, what's tennis savvy in that context? Like,
she's pictured here with a tennis racket in her hand.
Yeah, she's watched it before.
She could be into tennis, who knows?
Yeah.
But he says bosses at SW19, as in Wimbledon, will be looking on and envy as the US Open's 3-week party begins this month. But do not expect a Wimbledon dating show anytime soon.
I don't think they will, to be honest.
Hard to see it.
I don't think they will. Different product. Wimbledon is the kind of the luxury history kind of all whites spec, and yeah, it's a totally different product.
Yeah.
US Open's big. It's loud. It's
Henman Hill, or whatever version of it's called now, is Murray Mound.
yeah.
There was another one since that.
They're looking at something with Draper. The new thing on the block. They're looking at something, a hill with D involved.
Right, we've covered an awful lot of ground there.
Yeah.
Have we missed any pieces? Are you happy enough?
I thought just a small interesting bit on the AFLW and the impact that's having.
Shane McGrath and the Mail.
Up on 39 players, and you can't get away from the impact this is having and is going to have on the ladies' game. There's barely a county now that's not affected with some of their best players gone. Yes, we had a few involved last week on both teams who were given leeway to fly out late to Australia, but the feeling is that's not going to be the case going forward. And I think there's areas that the LGFA can go after here to try and maybe tackle this. First and foremost, I mentioned earlier, push for this integration. There's girls out of pocket at the moment playing ladies football. My brother's partner, she plays with Waterford. She lives up in Des Moines, and I make it that if she was on the same mileage claims as I was when I was playing for Meath, she could be claiming back upwards of 10 grand a year. And instead she's getting a couple of €100 flat rate.
Wow.
So that stops girls playing first and foremost. It's not making a professional, it stops girls playing. And I think another thing that needs to be looked at massively is the rules. There's been so much said about the physicality side of it. These girls have got to a different level in terms of their athleticism. The rules don't match it anymore. In fact, I think they've become dangerous because the loophole on the charging is being manipulated to a fact where you're getting really dangerous collisions now. Vicky Wall obviously the prime example that it happens with, and it's not just her. If you want to get a girl in trouble, it's the strongest ball carriers. So when I see her coming, I get into her eye line. I am the one who knows the contact's coming. She doesn't. She's running at full speed, and you're getting these huge impacts. And I don't blame the girls who are manipulating the fouls at the moment. And I don't blame the referees either, if that's what the rule is.
It was one of the criticisms of Dublin after last weekend that.
Yeah, I think that was slightly different, that they shared the fouls very well to avoid yellow cards. There was one or two of maybe looking for but again, I don't want to blame any team who uses the rule book to their advantage. It's been happening in every sport for a long time, but I think restricting these really good athletes with a rule book where they're better served playing in another sport, coupled with the fact that they're significantly, in many cases, not all cases, many cases significantly out of pocket, if they don't act very fast, you're dealing with an age cohort here that look to move to Australia regardless of sport.
Regardless, yeah.
Like it's primed. If you want to go, okay, I just go and I get set up here and I get to see a bit of the country, traveling to different cities, playing. It's a no-brainer for them. And I think the ship's getting very close to having sailed if the LGFA want to tackle it.
Yeah. I hadn't seen TG Carr been blamed somewhere, but Shane McGrath ties it in as well.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I think that's the least of the problem.
Peter Keane has stepped down as Clare football manager. We started with Ger Brennan being appointed. He's just stepped down after one season. Regret that I'm unable to commit managing Clare for the year ahead. Combination of factors influenced my decision, namely growing business demands and travel and time challenges.
Yeah, we spoke earlier about like the appreciation of inter-county management. It's becoming, I think the life cycles are becoming just shorter and shorter the whole time because the time demands are so big, especially if you're travelling from another county.
Yeah, that's huge.
It's huge. Yeah.
Simon Carr, Shane McEntee, enjoy that.
Thanks, lads.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
The Sunday Papers
On Off the Ball.